Alright guys, welcome back to another video. My name is James. I am the world's worst web developer, and you may remember in my last video I mentioned that the next several videos were probably going to be Etch related because it's new and I'm excited about it, and I lied to you because today's video is not about Etch. Although I do believe if you are an Elementor or Divi user and you're thinking about switching to Etch, I think this video might be helpful to you because today we're going to be talking about WordPress's template hierarchy. We're going to talk about how WordPress templates work and why, if you've ever just been curious and poked around the files of a WordPress theme, you may have noticed that they're all the different themes are just wildly different. Some themes, simple themes, will just have a few PHP files. Others will have a whole bunch of PHP files. It's really just kind of a mess. And we're going to talk a little bit about, why that is. How does the WordPress templating system actually work when a WordPress website displays some content? How is it doing that? What actual PHP file is being used to do that? So to make some of what we're doing easier, I am going to install a plugin real quick called Which Template, and this is just a helpful tool that tells you exactly what template file is actually being used to display the content that we're looking at right now. So if I go to the home page, right here you see it says index.php. That means that this content is being rendered using a file in our theme called index.php, and that's not always the case. There are tons of different options for displaying content that we're going to look at. And if I view a specific post like this one, you'll notice this also index.php. You'll also notice that it looks exactly like our home page, and that's because our theme right now doesn't have a header or a footer or anything like that. So really all we have on this website right now is that one post that comes default with WordPress, and then this page that comes default with WordPress. And once again, this is being rendered with index.php, and I'm going to show you why everything so far seems to be rendered with the same exact file. And that's because that's the only file we have in our theme. This is our theme. This is technically all you need to have a WordPress theme, is an index.php file and a style.css. That's it. Now again, if you've ever looked at a theme, there's usually a lot more stuff in here than that, but this is technically all we need. If you look at index.php, some of it just makes sense. We got our HTML tag, we got our head, and inside our head we got our char set and our viewport stuff. If you're familiar with building like an HTML website, this stuff looks pretty familiar to you. This is just a WordPress thing that you can use to if you need to dump stuff into the head, like maybe a JavaScript for Google Analytics or something, you can use this function to do that. So we don't really need to pay attention to that today. And then we have our body, again, typical HTML stuff, and we have a main tag. That's pretty common to put all your content in a main element. And then we have this little PHP function, which basically all this is doing is saying this is where the content goes. Whatever the content is, if it's a post, if it's a page, whatever, we're going to put it right here, right? If there are posts, then we'll put the posts. And so that's it. This is the only PHP file that exists in the theme, which means any piece of content that we try to render is going to use this template. And if I come up here and I just add a little h1 that says index.php, save that, go look at our website. Now you see we have this, and this will be on every page, right? If it's on our home page. If we look at our post, it's there because we hard coded it right there. So every page that uses index.php is going to have this title, and then below that title it's going to dump whatever the content is. Okay, so for this post the content is this. For our page the content is this, but regardless everything gets this heading because we hard coded that into the template. Now what happens if we come in here, and I'm just going to copy all this, and I'm going to create a file called page.php. And I'm going to paste it in there, and I'm going to change this to say page.php. Save that. I'm going to refresh this. Look at that. We have this new heading. Our plugin is telling us that this is being rendered with the page.php file now. But what if I go to our main page? That's still index.php, our home page. What if I view a post? That's still index.php. Why is that? The reason for that is WordPress has a specific, what they call template hierarchy, which means depending on what kind of content you're trying to view, it will look for a specific template file. If that doesn't exist, it'll look for another one. If that doesn't exist, it'll look for another one. And if it can't find any of the templates that it's looking for that piece of content, it will always just default to index.php, which is why that file is required to have a theme. Okay, so you can build a theme with only an index.php. It gets tricky because you have to put a whole bunch of conditional logic in here. You know, if it's a post, do this. If it's a page, do this. If it's this, do that. Or you can just use specific templates for specific types of content. Again, if I copy this and let's create a single.php, and we'll change this. Let's go back here. So we're looking at a post, and look at that. The post is using single.php. Let's see what our home page is doing. Home page is still index.php, didn't change anything there. What's our page doing? Our page is still using page.php. Okay, so you might be thinking, well, shoot, how do I know like what template? I didn't just make those up. These are specific. Index, page, single. I didn't make those up. These are specific WordPress templates that WordPress is looking for. And if you want to know, what to look for, you can Google WordPress template hierarchy. This is the official WordPress docs on the topic. There are other things that might be a little more useful. If you come to this page, however, you're going to get this graphic, which is kind of intimidating to look at. But if you understand that you can pretty much ignore all this orange and green stuff in the middle, and basically we're going to start on the left and we're going to pick a type of content. So let's say we're wondering what template file would I use for a blog post. So here's blog post right here, and we'll follow the line. And okay, it's looking for a template file called single-post.php. If it doesn't find that, it's going to look for single.php. If it doesn't see a single.php, it's going to look for a singular.php. And if it doesn't see a singular.php, it's going to default to the index.php. Right? So we have a single.php. Remember, I created that. And the single.php is being used when we view our blog post, single.php. So if we look at this and we say, well, before single.php, it was trying to use a single-post.php. All right, well, let's create one of those. Single-post.php. Save, refresh, and there we go. So it found a single-post.php, so it used that. And if we come in here and we delete this, refresh, it will default to the single.php because that's the next one in the template hierarchy. Couldn't find a single-post, so it used single. If we delete single, now it's using index.php. All right. So in my example, I just copy and pasted the same code. But obviously, if you're building on a theme, you're going to have different templates. Your posts might look different from your pages, for instance. Maybe every post you want to have like a sidebar that has like recent posts and categories and things like that. So you build that into your single post template. So when somebody views a blog post, it uses that template to display that content. But when somebody views your home page or a regular page, it uses a different template. And so you can imagine, these things can get fairly complicated, and a lot of themes do. I mean, if you remember this graphic, I don't understand what half this stuff means. I just use this. I ignore most of this stuff. All the orange stuff, I just ignore it. And I just say, okay, page template. I'm creating a static page, so what's it going to look for? Oh, it's looking for page.php. So then I know that if I want to create a template for a page, I should create a page.php. You can have a separate template for your home page. You know, if we come here to settings, reading, actually I need to create a home page first. Let's create a page called home. Publish that. And right now, if we look at it, it's just a regular page, so it's going to use the page.php. We're going to come to settings, reading, and we're going to use a static home page. Okay, and it's still using page.php, but if we create a home.php, and we refresh this, it is, oh, it's still using page.php. Let's see, did I misunderstand our hierarchy here? Front page should be using, let's see here. Oh, page shown on front, post shown on front. Oh, page shown on front, which is what I chose. So the arrow comes up here to page template. Okay, so it's looking for page, it's not looking for home. It only uses home.php if you choose the option to show posts. So I'll actually go back and undo that. Show posts. Now it's using home.php. So you can see even I got confused, but using this and actually paying attention to it told me what was going on. If you choose to have the front page be a page, then you come up here and go down this path. If you choose to have posts on the home page, then you follow this path. So this graph can be pretty helpful, and there's other graphs out there that aren't as overwhelming as this because it doesn't have all this stuff in the middle. In fact, I think, who was it? Yeah, I think WP Beginner has a pretty good article about this stuff. It kind of shows you, it kind of breaks it down into pieces. So like, oh, if you're curious about a single post, these are the templates it's looking for. Single dash post, like we already tried, and then if it doesn't see that, it goes for single. If it doesn't see that, it goes for singular. If it doesn't see that, it defaults to the index.php. So this is the same information as that other graph we looked at, but it kind of breaks it up, I think, into more manageable chunks. I think what I was trying to play with earlier was the front. Yeah, here we go. Site front page. So front-page.php. Let's try creating one of those. Whoa, what did I do? I did the wrong thing. There we go. And this is front-page.php. Okay, I'm going to go back into settings and choose our home page as our home page. Now let's see what happens. Okay, it's still doing page.php. So what is this? Site front page. Alright, I'll be honest, I don't understand. I don't know what I have to do to make WordPress use the front-page.php. Maybe this other article can shine some light on that. Front page. If you're using a static front page, then WordPress will first look for this template file and use it to display the front page. Okay, I think I am using a static front page, am I not? Did I do it wrong? Oh, where'd my file go? Okay. Okay, I see. For some reason I accidentally didn't create the page that I thought I did. Let's try again. Front-page.php. There we go. Paste that in there. Save it. There it is. Okay, I'm not going crazy. I just don't know how to type apparently. So once again, following our crazy graphic up here, since we're using a static front page, it looked for the front-page.php file. And it'll do this regardless of you know, anything else. Like this is the first thing it's looking for. If I don't have a front-page.php, then WordPress says, okay, well, what option did they choose? Did they choose to have the front page be a page, or are they choosing to have the front page be their post? And depending on which one you chose, that'll tell you which path to go down. So hopefully me struggling to type there didn't confuse you too much. I was just trying to show you that front-page.php is a thing. So you can see there's all sorts of other things I'm not going to bother, displaying, but I will just mention them. For instance, an archive page. So if you have, your posts has a category of, I don't know, something, and we give this post, we put this post in that category, and whoops, let's go back to categories and view this category. This is using index.php because it's looking for, let's see here, date, custom, category archive. So it's looking for a category.php file. Whoops, but we don't have a category.php file. So then it's going to look for archive.php. We don't have an archive.php, so it's defaulting to index.php. So you can also create a template specifically for these archive pages. If you want to build out, this category page a certain way, you use either a category.php and that's specifically for category archive. There's all sorts of different types of archive. There's date archive, tag archive, custom taxonomy archive, custom post type archive, and author archive. So there's all sorts of archives, and you can build out basically a separate template for each one if you really want to. Or you could just do an archive.php, and all of these archives will default to archive.php if you didn't create a specific template for it. So, you even get a 404. There's a 404 template right here. If you want to have a custom layout for a 404 page, you can do that. But then again, if you don't have a 404.php, it will default to index.php. So everything will always default to index.php if it can't find the specific template that it's looking for. So yeah, I think that's about it. The reason I think this is kind of helpful if you're thinking about switching to Etch from something like Elementor or Divi is because, when you're building with Elementor, you can create templates, but it's all UI based. So you don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. All you know is you're like, oh, I want to create a template for single posts. So you go into Elementor settings, whatever, and you click templates and create a single post template, and then you build it out. So if you're going to leave that environment and go to something like Etch, it will be helpful to understand how the template system works, because if you are building an Etch, you can come over here to the template section and you can see that we actually have some templates set up by default. We have the catch-all. This is the index.php basically. They call it catch-all because that's what the index.php does. It catches everything. If there's no template for what you're trying to do, it will just default to the index. So this is your catch-all template. They do have a 404 page template like I mentioned, and then they have a home page template if you have your blog posts on the homepage, which most people don't, but some people still do that. And then you can create more templates here if you want to. So if you want to create a template for your blog posts, you just click here, single post, and there's your single post template. And if you understand everything I just talked about, then this page will make a lot more sense to you. Because if we edit the index template, you'll see I don't even have a header yet on this website. I do have a footer, and then I have the main, and the main is basically this right here, this little PHP function that says, hey, dump the content right here. That's what this main element is. And then I have a footer, and that's basically it. And so if I go back to the templates and I go to the post template, it duplicated my index template, kind of like I was doing where I was just copying and pasting. But I can now edit this single post template specifically, and it won't affect anything else. So this is how I can create a specific template for single posts in Etch, and so I can still have the catch-all for everything else, and then for post it will use this. So I just feel like understanding how that template hierarchy works will make this page just make a little bit more sense to you. And the cool thing about this is if I have a custom post type, it automatically detects that, and there would be another column here for whatever that custom post type is. So maybe I created a custom post type called team because I have a section on my website where I'm showing all the members of my team, right? Then I would have a column here that says team. I could create a template for that. So I could have a separate template for my blog posts that displays everything a certain way. I can have a separate template for my team pages that displays all the content in a certain way. It's really just, it feels a little overwhelming at first, especially if you're looking at that graphic, but when you understand how the template system works, it really kind of opens up your, I don't want to say, I guess, options as far as what you can do. You know, rather than, like I said, just having one index PHP file and then just trying to use a whole bunch of conditional if statements to, you know, if it's a post, here's the layout I want. If it's a page, here's the layout I want. If it's a team page, here's the layout I want. That would be just a big mess of conditional logic, and it would be a pain to maintain. So understanding how templates work, I believe, will just help you be a better WordPress developer. So I think that's it for this video. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing, and I'll probably get back to etch videos after this. So thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys later.